Hi, I'm Isabel Yang and I'm 17.
Hi, I'm a student at Saratoga High School and I'm 18 years old.
Hi, my name is Andrea and I'm 19 years old.
So we have this story here for you, but we want to ask you a few questions first.
How old do you think on average girls get sexually harassed or assaulted?
13?
16?
I think it starts around the age of when girls start hitting puberty and it just continues on for the rest of your life.
How often do you think it occurs?
Oh, I'm 1 in 5 women.
1 in 3 women.
I think sexual harassment occurs to every woman at some point in their lives.
What options do you think you would have if you were the victim?
Probably telling like a parent or like a trusted adult.
If I were the victim, I would talk to my parents, talk to teachers, my friends.
I think, obviously you can report the case and whatever happened, and there's also a lot of support groups and a lot of organizations that you can reach out to.
My story begins at the age of 14. Mine is the story of emotional, psychological, and physical abuse. It didn't begin immediately. In fact, there weren't any signs until we had been dating for almost a year. The signs weren't obvious, especially to a 14-year-old. At the time, it was easy to mistake jealousy and control for adoration.
It soon progressed to name-calling, insults, unfounded accusations, degradation, humiliation, and isolation. I began believing I deserved the abuse and thought everyone else believed I was who he said I was. The hell became so familiar that it was easier to stay rather than leave.
It was easier to live with the shame and guilt and secrecy. It was easier to stay and suffer in private than to try to leave and be humiliated in public. I was stuck in a psychological trap and didn't know where to turn. Nobody could help me. I tried to leave a few times. He would threaten to commit suicide or worse. The relationship took an emotional toll to the point where I was getting severe panic attacks.
I ended up in the hospital a few times and was put in counseling, but I never spoke about the abuse. I didn't want anyone to know. I lied for and about him. I told nobody.
Nobody knew I'd been threatened with a gun. Nobody knew I'd been punched so hard I was almost knocked out. Nobody knew about the headbutts every time he didn't agree with something I did or didn't do. Nobody knew the reason my windshield had shattered was because he had punched it in a fit of rage over what I'd worn to school that day.
Nobody knew about the many deliberate close call head-on collisions while he was threatening to kill us both.
Phil and I met at the age of 16. Our relationship started as a dream. We were young and thought I was in love. For the first 6 to 8 months, everything was great. Gradually, his behavior changed. If I wore something or did anything he didn't like, I was verbally abused, screamed at, and then he began to hit, choke, slap me, and he even spat in my face a few times. I lived in constant fear and anxiety. I was 17 and had already endured his constant abuse for almost 2 years. The acts of verbal abuse and physical abuse were endless. Around the age of 19, the violence got so bad I feared for my safety like I never had before. The physical violence and his paranoia were escalating. Being choked became a regular occurrence. I knew in my gut I needed to end the relationship. I just had to figure out how to do that. When I would try to break up with him, he would threaten the safety of me and my family or threaten to commit suicide. He would call me saying he was standing on the edge of a cliff ready to jump if I did not get back together with him. I would drive to the cliff and beg him to get away from the edge. The pressure of feeling like I literally had his life in my hands was too much for me to handle at the age of 19. I felt more helpless each time I attempted to break up. The threats against my family terrified me, and I would never forgive myself if something happened to any of them. It was worth dealing with the pain alone to prevent Phil from killing himself and anyone from my family being hurt. When I share my story, I often get asked why I stayed in the relationship for so long. I believe people are genuinely confused why someone would choose to have someone like that in their lives. I, like many other survivors, did not feel I had a choice.
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be the girl to end up in an abusive relationship. But I am here to tell you that abuse can happen to anyone at any time, anywhere in the world. I am a survivor of teen dating violence.
Never once in those first 6 to 9 months when we were dating did I ever think our love story would have anything but a happy ending. I had no reason to believe he would ever intentionally hurt me because he loved me, right?
Well, not until the first time I saw and experienced the other side of him. To this day, I can't tell you what we were arguing about. We weren't in a lonely room or a dark alleyway. We were standing right in front of my apartment door. My parents were inside and it was a regular day outside. The sun was shining. Children were playing and the birds were chirping. Then it all went black.
The slap hit me with enough force to send saliva flying out of my mouth, like a boxer who is about to get knocked out. I was silent. I couldn't even react. I'm fairly certain I didn't even breathe. I couldn't move. I was frozen, not by fear but by disbelief. It was like I knew for sure there was no way this moment was possibly happening in my world.
It didn't happen all at once, but day by day he'd take control of the little things in my life, and eventually the abuse would occur more frequently. But still, I could not leave the relationship. I stayed because I was afraid. I stayed because I was full of shame and embarrassment. I stayed because I knew I'd be judged if people found out the truth.
I stayed because I wanted to save him. I stayed because I thought I loved him. All of it became normal. The beatings were normal. Life with him hiding and watching was normal. I accepted this as my life, and I was simply waiting to die.
I didn't believe in the possibility of a future, and every time I started to, he crushed those dreams with his fists. Abuse has a tendency to make you believe you don't deserve to be loved and live a life of success and purpose.
Abuse kills dreams. It almost killed mine.
Have your answers to the first 3 questions changed after you read the anonymous letter?
I mean, probably the third one, the one where you're asking, like, what I think I could do.
Just the last one.
No, I still believe the same thing.
I feel like it's never as easy. Like, you know, like, you might hear that, oh, seek help, but, like, when you're in that situation, it's sometimes impossible.
I guess this isn't something you'd really talk about because he threatened you.
What will you take away from this person's story?
That abuse is, like, a very real thing. Like, we try to pretend that it's, like, not something that's, like, really present and is, like, happening even to people at, like, the age of 14.
It's basically just reinforces what I thought before, that abuse really does happen to anyone, and it can happen to anyone at any point in your life.
I think just that people need to be more aware of these things so they can kind of be on the lookout for signs if that is happening to someone, because that, like, this is someone that could be in high school, probably is in high school, so if you can look for signs of that or something, then that'd be good. So I guess just people need to be aware of these things.
I mean, there's always people that you can talk to. Yeah.
If I see something, I'm gonna say something because sometimes the people in that situation might not be able to do the same.